Hidden under the gardens and gazebos of an old colonial estate in Singapore lies a story that reveals a very different portrayal of the fall of the former colony. Singapore is generally viewed as the most ignominious defeat in British military history, and battlefield archaeologist Jon Cooper, who spent 9 years with the RAF, has been unearthing what happened there nearly 70 years ago. Elaine Parnell reports.
This is Adam Park, where some of Singapore's most exclusive homes can be found. This former colonial estate, built in 1928, was the scene of some of the most intensive fighting on the island, making this area a perfect time capsule. Former RAF officer Jon Cooper has spent the last 2 years sweeping through the gardens, trying to piece together a picture of the battlefield landscape in which the Cambridgeshire regiment stood firm against the Japanese during the last days before the fall of Singapore.
This is 17 Adam Park, and this was, we know from the documentation, was a regimental aid post for the battalion when they were here. And what we've got is the evidence supporting that. So over on the far side we have molten glass and molten metal from the fire which took over the regimental aid post at the end of the fighting. And in the garden itself we have traces of bullets and lines of Japanese machine gun bullets, so we know the place was under attack as well sometime during the course of the action.
Adam Park was the first major urban area the Japanese encountered as they swept through Singapore. It was a bastion of defence, with each house playing a critical part. House number 19 marked the Cambridgeshire's front line, and although the Japanese managed to infiltrate the house next door, they were soon evicted. Adam Park was an impossible nut to crack.
The evidence we find for the house-to-house fighting is a complete change of the patterning. You get different types of bullets coming out of the ground, like the Thompson submachine gun bullets. Close-in, quarter hand-to-hand fighting needs a good machine gun, and the boys had Thompson submachine guns. So suddenly you find a whole spate of Thompson submachine gun bullets. And of course the patterning suggests where you've got an intermix of British ordnance and Japanese ordnance means that the antagonists were literally in the same area.
To help Jon reconstruct a comprehensive picture of the British defence, he's developing a 3D model of the area, which will identify the location of the troops and the fields of fire. Jon has unearthed more than 1,700 artefacts, but one piece stands out from the rest.
And this is perhaps our most poignant find, and that's the Cambridgeshire collar badge.
But the big story about Jon's research is that it offers some redemption in an otherwise ignominious defeat. It's a tale of how a British unit repulsed some of Japan's most experienced soldiers. They stood their ground for 3 days and were never defeated. They fought until they were ordered to surrender.
It's a positive story. Generally the received account of the fall of Singapore is a very dismal tale. People getting off the ships, hardly firing a shot and putting down their guns and then going into captivity for the duration of the war. So to actually have a particular battle where the Allies were successful and actually held back the Japanese, and I believe some medals were won that day, it's rather nice to have and rather reassuring for British pride that we can have a positive story to talk about in relation to the fall of Singapore.
Even if Jon's research does not lead to any great revisionist debate on the fall of Singapore, one thing is very clear. The Cambridgeshire regiment fought incredibly bravely. In 3 days of fighting, they won 3 medals that tell their story: a DSO, an MC and an MM. And that has to be worthy of more than just a footnote in history. Elaine Parnell, Forces News, Singapore.